Inside today. I'm with Jeff Westeinde. Very nice to meet you.
You too.
And we're doing this interview on this huge project called the Waterfront.
Zibi, the Waterfront City.
Zibi, the Waterfront City. So I'd love to know, how did you get started? Like, how was your education? And
Well, I went to University of Western Ontario as an engineer.
Okay.
I never practiced as an engineer, but I knew coming out of high school that school was not necessarily my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wanted to go on and be, a lawyer, an accountant, a doctor, I had to get an undergraduate and then do a graduate degree.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't in the cards for me. So an engineering degree is 4 years straight out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and had a tremendous time and learned not only about engineering but a lot of other stuff. I did a lot of extracurricular things when I was at school. So,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's great. It's great.
Cool. And then where did you go after the education?
I had gotten fortunate when I was in university. I bought a house and just luck. The house went up significantly in value. So I sold the house and I had more money than I think I've ever had in my life. I felt like at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used to judge everything by how many cases of beer it would cost, right? So this was unlimited cases of beer that I had. So my plan was to take a year off, take a sabbatical, go around the world. My first stop was in Vancouver. I had a bunch of buddies out there and we rode our bikes down to Tijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was there, I got a phone call from the company I worked for that summer to say, would I stay in Vancouver for a month or two and train one of their new managers on this piece of software I wrote the summer before. I said, sure. A wife and 4 kids later, I left Vancouver 15 years later, I think. So I spent a lot of time out in Vancouver. And yeah.
So wait, engineer, so was it software engineer, civil? Civil?
Yeah, no, my plan was
Okay.
I was a structural engineer. My plan was that I wanted to get into building construction. My parents had a general contracting business. So that was the plan. I ended up in Vancouver getting into the environmental business, the environmental cleanup business.
Okay.
And in a roundabout way, I guess, I'm back in construction. We hire builders to build for us, but in a roundabout way, I'm back in construction.
Okay, so what motivated you to leave Vancouver and I guess come to Ottawa, or?
It was simple. My wife and I are both, we both got raised in Ottawa. Our family was here. Both my mom and dad, her mom and dad, our siblings. We were the only ones not in this part of the world. We had the first 4 grandkids. So the call to home was pretty strong. Her mom at the time was struggling with some health issues and she started to fly back and forth across the country. My parents needed a bit of help with the business that they were running at the time, so I was starting to fly back and forth across the country. So that whole combination was just, why don't we just come home? And we kept strong ties with Ottawa. Cottage country here is killer, as you know. So we kept strong ties to Ottawa, and we're back every summer. My wife and kids were here for 2 months every single summer, and I joined them for a couple of weeks. So it was a relatively natural transition. It was interesting coming home, though. I left when I was 18 years old, and sleepy little government town, was never going to come back. And I came back to a city that was very different than the city I left. Ottawa today is I always say we went from being a big small city to being a small big city, and thinking that way too. And that's what I see happening in Ottawa and Gatineau now. It's a really vibrant place to live, work, and play.
So you transitioned here and then you started with the family business, or?
No, so I helped my parents for a couple of years, but I had a business when I was 25 years old, and I started my own business out in Vancouver. That at the time we started just taking asbestos out of buildings, and then we went from taking asbestos out of buildings to got into site remediation, clean up the contaminated sites, old industrial sites like this one. Emergency response, so CN Rail, CP Rail, all the pipelines were our clients. Got into demolition so that we essentially could take old industrial sites, contaminated industrial sites, and get them ready for development. So I did that for 20 some odd years. Sold that business about a decade ago. A decade ago now I sold that business, but I started out when I was 25 in Vancouver. I had no idea what I was doing.
How did you get started? Like, you just saw a course to learn about it? Like, because you got civil engineering and then you just started a business.
Yeah, well, so I grew up in a family business. So my mom and dad, Sunday dinner, we talked business.
Okay.
So it didn't strike me as an odd thing to be an entrepreneur. It struck me
Okay.
as a relatively normal thing to do.
Okay.
So that was the first thing. Second thing was, this doesn't sound like a great motivation to start a business, but my wife and I had a deal that one of us was going to stay home with our kids.
Wow.
And I just always assumed that meant her. The business I was working for, the one that I had worked for the previous, or 2 summers prior to that, went bankrupt. So I came home one day and we had a 6-month-old baby at home, and I said to my wife, honey, like, I've lost my job, but don't worry, I'll find something. She's an engineer as well. She said, well, I get job offers all the time. Why don't I go to work? So she went to work. I was a house dad for 6 months. And you know, I loved being a house. It was fantastic. You know, quality of life was amazing, but I just wasn't fulfilled with it. And a couple of guys called me up and said, hey, we understand that you might be looking for something to do. And I said, yeah, absolutely. What are you guys thinking? So we're thinking of starting a business. We'd love you to come and join us. So based on that, then there was 3 of us started it. Two of us, one of our partners decided to leave, but 2 of us ran it from then on. So.
Okay. Okay, so you're back in Ottawa.
Yep.
And then.
So continued to run that business. It was a national business.
So we had cleanup business was a national.
Yeah. We had an office all over Canada.
Okay.
We were about 1,000 people at the time. So continued to do that until 2011. But you know, I was involved in a number of other businesses at the same time. My day job was the company Quantum. I was the CEO of that. But you know, my brother and I were doing some property development, as a series of other things that I got involved with as well. So when I sold that business, I took a little bit of a sabbatical. My plan was that I would take 3 years off. I made it about 18 months, which is more than everybody bet that I could do. And then Zibi came along. And when Zibi came along, then it was my rules for going back to work were that I needed to do something world class, and I didn't want to travel. And that's tough to do, you know. I think most professionals that work in Gatineau or Ottawa spend a lot of time going to Montreal, Quebec City, Toronto, and so saying, and not that I don't want to travel at all, but I don't want to travel all the time. That was a tall order, and this opportunity has provided that. This is absolutely a world-class opportunity in my own backyard. So yeah, I don't need to travel a lot, which I like.
The opportunity came to you, or you created the opportunity? Like, how did you come up with Zibi, even the name, or like?
How long have you got?
We got time. Like, that's why I'm fascinated about it. It's like, okay, did you create the idea?
So, a gentleman by the name of Rodney Wiltz, one of the partners that I work with, lives in Chelsea, and he would ride his bike across the Chaudière Bridge every day. And anybody that has crossed the Chaudière Bridge over the course of the last 100 years has seen an old industrial site. It used to be vibrant, and then since 2006 they shut the mill down. It's been fenced off, locked off. But you look at the physical beauty of the properties. So he kept saying, like, I wonder why nobody's doing anything with this. So we tracked it down, found out that Domtar owned the site. Had a couple of discussions with Domtar, who at the time were in the process of selling the lands to the federal government. Under Harper, the federal government decided not to buy the lands. So Domtar all of a sudden had some property that they were looking to sell. So we had engaged with Domtar, and it was a private sector to private sector transaction, bought the land, and with an awful lot of help, envisioned what should this be. This site is incredibly important to our region. Everybody here knows we live on three great rivers: the Ottawa, the Rideau, the Gatineau. So this entire region used to be a big trading area for the First Nations. First European to come up here, Samuel de Champlain, in the early 1600s, made a note of the waterfall in his journal. And that waterfall, if you go look at it today, it's still amazing. But prior to all the reservoirs upstream, it was, I gather, truly impressive. And that's what brought the first permanent settler here, Philemon Wright, whose house was about 100 meters that way, set up mills, and we became the largest industrial center in British North America because of this site. And in about 1830, 1840, Queen Victoria was looking for a capital for what was then British North America. They had looked at some places down near the border, like Toronto, Kingston, and said, we shouldn't be too close to our neighbors, the Americans, because we burned the White House down in 1812. So, what else have we got? And the reason that Ottawa, or back then it was Bytown and Wrightville, were on the map was because of this massive industrial base, all centered around the falls. So, 400 years ago, first European comes, 200 years ago, first settler comes, and for the last 200 years, this has been an industrial center. It's now our opportunity to re-envision what does our region think it should be moving forward. So that's what's so exciting about it, right? It's critically important to our region, and we've been given the opportunity to program it.
Okay, how did you come up with the name?
We had a contest. Yeah, so we had a contest, and the property is pretty complex. It's half in Ontario, half in Quebec. So we had some ground rules. There's a series of them that we wanted to be something that was environmental. We're building one of the planet's most environmentally and socially sustainable communities here. So had to have a sustainability piece to it. Obviously had to translate from French to English very easily. There's a few other things. So we had a contest. Somebody came up with the word Zibi, which means river in the Algonquin language.
Okay.
And obviously in both French and English, it's Zibi and Algonquin.
Okay.
It's Zibi, so it means river, which we thought was very suitable for what we're doing.
Great.
Yeah.
And where are you at now with the project?
So I would say that what I call the heavy lifting is all done. So our planning and our zoning are all approved. We have our first residents living in Gatineau right now, right across the street from us here. Our first commercial tenants are moving in this summer. In Ontario, our first residents will be moving in first of next year, and our first commercial tenants will be moving in at about the same time. And then from there, it's just building after building after building, building momentum. So we've got about eight new buildings in the planning stages that should be starting construction. There'll be 3 of them starting construction later this year, and then from there, as I say, it's just consistent building of what would be, what's going to be an amazing community.
Okay, and you said it's going to be more eco-friendly?
Sustainable, yeah. So we're building to what's called the One Planet sustainability system model, and One Planet speaks for itself. What it says is the name says you have to live as if there's only one planet. Okay. And everyone looks at me and goes, but there is only one planet. And we remind them that if we all live like an American, we need 5 planets. If we live like a Canadian, we need 4 planets. A European needs 3 planets. And all we're doing is stealing from our grandkids and the developing world to have an unsustainable lifestyle. So this community would be built where every resident and office worker here will only be using a single planet's worth of resources. And we're doing that in a number of different ways. So all of our heating and cooling here is zero carbon. So if you think about, in this part of the world, we burn an awful lot of gas for heating, which adds to the off-gassing and climate change. In cooling, we use an awful lot of electricity, which on the Quebec side is very clean, but on the Ontario side, there's a lot of nuclear, et cetera, et cetera. So all of our heating and cooling is zero carbon. So we're not going to add to the problem. And then if you look at all of the products that we use, they're all sustainable. Our transportation, very sustainable, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we'll be, our goal is to be one of the planets, and if it's up to me, we will be the planet's most sustainable community.
Okay, wow. And how are you balancing the nature? Are you putting biking trails? Because you look like an athlete, so I figured you probably run, or you bike, or you do weights, so there must be an athletic component to this project.
Yeah, I mean, health and wellness is one of the things in the One Planet system. We actually get rated on health and wellness. So when people say to me, like, how can you rate someone health and happiness? How can you rate someone on happiness? And there's some simple indicators, like how many of your neighbors do you know by first name? The more of your neighbors you know by first name, the happier you are. So if you look at how we, I call what we do placemaking. So as we make this place, what are we doing to create those collisions between your neighbors, those random encounters? And it's not just programming and animation, but it's also how we build our buildings. So if you think about a typical building, and I'll use a condominium as a for instance. A typical condominium, then people get in the elevator. If there's someone in the elevator with you, you might see them, but that's kind of it. And it's that elevator up and down. There's a garbage chute. You might bump into someone at the garbage chute, but that's kind of it. In our first building, we did a couple of things. One, our stairwell has an unbelievable view out of the stairwell. So it's a big glass stairwell. Most stairwells are big concrete bunkers that aren't nice to be in. So we see people going up and down those stairs all the time. There's a rooftop patio that, you know, you'll see the view out here. You can't help but go up to the rooftop patio. We purposely did not put a garbage chute in because oftentimes, I know on my street, that's when I bump into my neighbors. I'll put our garbage out there. Hey, what's going on? You want to go have a beer later and that type of thing? So it's those kinds of things that and they're all little details. And I could go on for hours about all the different layers that we've put in. But yeah, health and happiness. The stats are simple. If you can live in a place where you don't need a car, so there's something called a walk score. If you have a walk score of 100, it means you can live 100 days out of 100 without a car. So we set our target here for a walk score of 100.
Wow.
And what that means is, you know, if you live in the suburbs and you want to go get some milk and you got to get in your car, or you want to take your kids somewhere and you got to get in your car, you're at a much higher risk of diabetes, obesity, etc., etc. If you can walk for everything you need, you will be healthier. So we built this here. We're building this in a community with all of that in mind: healthy, happy living.
Okay, so you're also nitpicking also like the commercial business that you want in there.
Big time.
So definitely you have a grocery store,
Yep.
you have a pharmacy, and a dentist, and
And you might know some people in the health and wellness industry that might have an interest here too.
Okay, very cool. So I guess there'd be a gym also.
There'd be a gym. Yeah, it might be a spa.
Okay, cool. And tell me about the zip line.
Well, so you know, one of our crazy ideas has always been that we would love to see, you know, people that live in this region know, I always say, the Ottawa River is a lot wider than it looks. Right? The separation between Ottawa and Gatineau, Ontario and Quebec is wide. This site has the opportunity to bring us closer together. Not only because it's the closest, you know, if you look at the bridge, it's the shortest bridge between Ontario and Quebec. But we can animate the streets. So this summer, and we're in the process right now of doing the construction of the Booth Eddy Chaudière crossing, which currently is the least pedestrian-friendly crossing, least cycling crossing in the region. September, well actually August 28th, when we open it up, it will be the most pedestrian and cycling-friendly crossing in the region. Big wide bike lanes, big wide sidewalks, and it'll totally transform the area. So we're doing things like that where people want to just saunter back and forth. We have public squares that face each other in Ontario and Quebec. So people will be looking at it and go, hey, let's go over there and do what it is they're doing there and tease people across the river. But one of our ideas is we'd love to put in a zip line between Ontario and Quebec. And I think we can make it happen.
Cool.
I can't formally announce it.
No,
we're working on it.
Okay, so it's okay, we have it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're working on it.
It's an idea.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. And what's been the biggest challenge in doing this project? Are there so many, or?
You don't have enough time for me to talk about that. I mean, the biggest challenge is this is literally where Canada's three founding nations physically came together. And it goes without saying that the relations between Canada's three founding nations have not always been calm and cordial. In order for us to be successful, we need Canada's three founding nations to all collaborate and do something amazing together. And that's what's happening. If you look, you know, the Algonquins, Francophones, Anglophones, New Canadians have all played a role in what we're doing here and will continue to play a role in what we're doing here. But trying to get everybody aligned to think outside of their own specific mandate is not easy. So if you look at, when I talk about transforming the Chaudière crossing, in order for us to do that scope of work, putting in the bike lanes and the sidewalks and those types of things, we needed the City of Ottawa, the City of Gatineau, the NCC, Federal Public Works, PSPC now, STO, OC Transpo, to all agree with what we're doing. And to the best of our knowledge, that's never happened before. So we have so many firsts that we've created on this project. So really, it is you know, it's an extremely complex piece of property. Sometimes the complexity has helped us because we have captured the imagination of our region's leaders that we want to do something amazing. We want to do something world class. And what I've said to those leaders is, I said, you know, world class means different. And bureaucrats are paid to enforce the same. You know, there's rules and everyone has to follow the same rules. And we're not asking to break any rules, but we are asking to be world-class. We want to think differently. And it was really important that the region's leaders empower their teams to think differently about things. But that's not an easy thing to get people to do, but that's what we ended up doing.
Okay. Yeah. And so, is your vision, does it keep changing, or is it always the same vision as you're doing the project? Because this is a huge project over so many years.
Yeah.
So what's happening with your vision?
Well, so the what I'll call the large-scale vision doesn't change.
Okay.
Be one of the world's most sustainable communities, connect the capital, make sure we showcase the waterfront. You know, there's a series of things like that that won't change.
Okay.
How you do those things will change, right? So the market will influence some of the things that we do. You know, will we build more condos or rental or commercial? When does the first hotel come? When does the second hotel come? When do we bring a spa in? You know, those types of things. Those are changing consistently, but the why we're doing it, you know, of connecting the capital and the vision and you know, seeing all of our national monuments, that doesn't change.
Okay. Oh, so by what you're saying, no townhouses or houses or anything like that?
No, there's no single family. From a sustainability point of view, you know, low density is not good for the planet.
Okay.
So, and this is, I mean, we're in the downtown core. We're literally sandwiched between downtown Ottawa and downtown Hull, but downtown Gatineau. So we're in the downtown core.
Okay.
So this will be an urban living experience, not a suburban one.
Okay. Cool. And do you actually have another project in mind, or you're just working on this now?
I always have projects.
That's what I thought. And did you start on them yet, or you're just ideas you're writing on?
No, we're working on a number of different things.
Okay.
Nothing that's anywhere, you know, I'm going to be spending the next 2 or 3 years making sure that we've got this one right, and before we launch our next big one. But no, absolutely, there's some more in the hopper.
Very cool. And what's the biggest thing you actually learned from doing this project? Because every challenge, every project, you definitely learn something new.
Yeah, this one was really about, and I'm not sure that I learned it, but it reinforced it that you need to have a larger vision. I think, you know, a lot of businesses are their mandate is to make money, and my view is real simple. Don't get me wrong, we have to make money, but money to a business is a lot like air is to me and you. So if you get up in the morning and you go, what are you gonna do today? Well, I'm gonna breathe. Okay, well, that's not a vision. Yeah. So why are you doing it? So that why, having that bigger vision, to really capture the imagination of all of your stakeholders, whatever business you're in, to say, this is why this is where we're going, this is why we're gonna try to achieve this. Okay, now you can start to collaborate. Because people can get behind a vision. They can't get behind, nor should they get behind simple things like, well, I need you to do this for me because my profit margin won't go up, right? That's not a compelling reason to do anything. And you know, I've learned over the years that if you consistently do the right thing, so what we're trying to do here should be of a huge benefit to the island of Hull, should be of a huge benefit to the city of Ottawa, should be. If you look at tourism in our area, it doesn't really center around our waterfront. I call it the tourist triangle. Starts at the Museum of War, you know, down Wellington, past the Parliament buildings, over the National Gallery, and across the Museum of History. But it's a triangle. We're going to be the fourth corner, so that people will be going around our waterfront, across our waterfront, starting to celebrate our waterfront. So, you know, that's what we want to bring to the region. And while we're doing it, we hope to do well at the project as well. We have to do well at the project or we won't do it, right? But again, we started with the why and then go from there.
Okay. Your new project, your new vision, does it have a different why?
Well, I have a couple. So I own a bunch of property around Westeinde.
Okay.
And that why is extremely selfish for me and the Westeinde neighborhood, which is create a great second home and place, you know, for your kids and family to come from wherever they're on the planet back to. for me to retire there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very personal vision for me.
Okay.
There's another project that we're working on that we can't announce yet, but it's very similar to this one. And it will, at the end of the day, if you look at our why here, the why here is simple. What can we do to make Ottawa and Gatineau, and specifically our neighbors, a cooler neighborhood? Mm-hmm. Because the cooler it is, the more valuable it is. The more valuable it is, the better we do. Mm-hmm. So if you look, we had Vision Centre-Ville here from Hull yesterday, which is the local BIA for the island of Hull. Mm-hmm. The woman from Vision Centre-Ville said, like, we've never worked with developers like us, because we do things like we walk up and down Main Street, we get coupons from all of the vendors, and when someone moves into one of our new homes, we give them all those coupons and say, we really encourage you to come learn about your neighborhood, go see what's here. It's a great neighborhood, right? Mm-hmm. And we really want to tie into the fabric of the neighborhood. So our why on any new project we do will always be, there'll be a few things that are very similar. One, be highly sustainable. We're hardcore environmentalists. Mm-hmm. But two, what can we do to make that, we're placemakers. What can we do to make that place vibrant and cool, and a place where people want to come and spend their time?
Mm-hmm. But I love the colors you chose. Like, because that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And who came up with that?
So Crystal Koo, who does all of our marketing, is one of our team members in Toronto, was the one that spearheaded this. And what it is, if you look out the window, you see those colors are used as a ribbon.
Yeah.
And the red is meant to symbolize the English, the blue is meant to symbolize the French, and the ribbon is the First Nations that ties us all together. Okay. And you'll see that ribbon make its way across our site. We're trying to see if we can have it weave through the bridge, but really this visual link that anywhere you are in the Zibi community, that you're part of this community.
Wonderful. I'm glad I asked the question.
Yeah.
That's great. It's very cool. Well, thank you so much. I learned a lot. This is exciting.
Yeah, well, great. I'm glad you're excited, but I'm terribly excited.
Yeah.
This is an amazing opportunity for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And where are you going to be marketing? Like, I guess the building itself markets itself? Because I've heard of Zibi for a while, and
so we have all sorts of different kinds of marketing. This is Zibi House. So Zibi House is meant to showcase what we're doing and how we're doing it. So if you walk around, you'll see not only the community we're planning on building, you'll see some things on One Planet and some of our sustainability goals. You'll see which buildings are coming next, that type of thing. But then, a big part of our marketing in real estate is simple. It's location. So we want to get people to the site. So we do all sorts of site animation. This summer you'll see Westeinde, the craft beer festival is coming here in June. In August we've got the Cirque du Soleil coming with their Alegria show. So that brings 100,000 people down in the month of August. So we do all sorts of things like that too, just to get people down to the site. Mm-hmm. Once you see it, you can't help but be impressed by it. There's a reason that the first settlers settled here, because it's an incredible piece of property.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. I didn't even know about the festivals here. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It was really exciting.
No, it was great chatting with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.